Welcome, good evening, and welcome to those who are following us in presence, and to those who are following us remotely. Well, I'm honored to introduce you this evening, this speak, and the following debate, and in particular to introduce you Bill Gardner, that will give us a speech, and Cosimo Lorenzo Pancini, Bob Liuzzo, and Armando Milani, who are the participants in the debate we will have after Bill's speech. And well, we will talk about brand and trend. And starting from a very important point in the history of graphic design, that is logo. Well, I think that Bill has a lot to tell us about logos. First and before all, for his professional career that is devoted to corporate identity, basically, but in particular because Bill established in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, a web portal called Logo Lounge that is full of logo and very interesting elements to help designers to design their own logo. And well, if afterwards we'll have a short debate, we will comment on what Bill said, Bill's statements, according to different point of view, focusing on type design, focusing on iconography, focusing on application of logo. Well, just a minute to introduce Bill. Thank you again for coming. And well, I think that tonight's speech is quite interesting for a couple of things, very interesting for a couple of things. That is, first and before all, well, of course, the quantity of logo, well, focusing on Logo Lounge, the platform is an incredible collection of logo that are really inspiring, of course, very interesting space about news on designing logos and so on. But the main point is, a very interesting point is that Logo Lounge launches every year a logo trend report that is a very interesting tool for graphic designers, because it's a way to, first and before all, divide and catalog logos from different point of view, morphological, iconographical, and so on. On the other hand, it's strongly related to the context, the social, the economical, the cultural context. And that is quite important because it demonstrates, it shows that the simple elements we use in designing logos are very meaningful, are full of meaning, and they can easily represent what a German philosopher called the Zeitgeist, the spirit of time. Because even in these simple elements, simple shapes, simple colors, simple typefaces, you can find probably a sort of explanation, let's say, what's happening all around us. And how our context influence graphic design, and how graphic design can influence our context in turn. So, as graphic design, I think, is an industry, a creative industry, and every industry needs tools to develop, of course. This is a very interesting tool to develop. I think to develop the graphic design industry. And I think also it's an element that shows the maturity of the graphic design industry, because in its role to innovate the other industries, like every creative industry does. And well, because all of us and all industries are looking for instruments to understand the present, to foresee the future. And now I leave the floor to Bill, and would like to thank a lot Bill, who was a protagonist yesterday of an interesting, really engaging workshop about methods and tools, and I kept one tool, the most significant one maybe, and I would like to thank Bob because he organized the whole stuff. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is such a pleasure to be able to spend this time at IED. And I will tell you that last night I had the opportunity to sit down at dinner with this austere panel that we're going to be hearing from in a few moments. And today Bob took me to the Design Museum here in Milan. And I've always considered Milan to be this incredible bastion of design. And it wasn't maybe until today that Bob opened my eyes even further to, just how important design is in this community and how that passes on out to the world. And obviously with Logo Lounge, we look at the works of 20,000 plus members from more than 100 countries around the world and more than 380,000 logos that have been uploaded to the site. But before I get into this, I'm going to dispel a couple of rumors. And the first one is that I'm going to not leave a picture of me behind me the entire time. But the trend report always has the effect on people of saying, thank God I'm not in the report because I would hate to be thought of as being trendy. And this is my opportunity to tell you there is a difference between the word trendy and trends. And I think you know that. Trendy is a very ephemeral kind of period of time. It's something that's not going to last. It's going to be a flash in the pan. But on the other hand, a trend, I want you to think of in terms of, and I see I'm looking at my work here. I want you to think of trends in terms of a trajectory, a direction that things are moving in. I want you to think about evolution as a word, because things evolve as part of a trend. It is a trend line. So when we start looking at logos, we can also identify trend lines. Now, I'm also going to make this point, that Logo Lounge has been doing this trend report since 2003. And you're welcome to go to logolounge.com and look under trends, and you can look at all the past reports. And I often tell people that it's more important to know how you got there than to know where you are. And I explained to a group class last night why that is, and you're going to hear more about that as we kind of go through here. But you have to know your history to be able to identify that direction, that trend. You can't just look at a single spot and identify a trend. You have to look at multiple points along the way. Now, I'll also tell you that as a designer and a businessman, that I really am polar opposite kind of ends of the spectrum. I deal with objectivity and I deal with subjectivity at the same time. And my subjectivity tells me that if everybody in this room agrees with me, that I'm probably saying something wrong, because as a designer, we want to know that we're shaking the barrel a little bit, that we're causing a little bit of disturbance, because we need to make people think about things. When you take a look at the trend report, I want you to keep in mind that everybody in this room lives by trends. It's no fun to think about that, but we do. What we read, the things that we eat, the things that we watch, the things that we wear, everything is based off of trends. Otherwise, it wouldn't ever be put on the rack. It wouldn't ever be served to you at the table. But as designers, we have a unique perspective, I think, on trends. I think all of us tend to look at trends in such a way that we are able to pull together disparate elements in the way that other people don't. And we also recognize, I think, trends more quickly than the public does. I often share that here a few years back, my daughter is 26 now, but when she was about 16, and she's still sweet and beautiful, but my wife and I were going out, and I reached back in my closet and I pulled out a leather jacket I had had for some years, and I put the leather jacket on, and I went downstairs and I started to leave. My daughter looked at me and she said, "Are you going to wear that?" Which was her very kind way of telling me I reached too far into the back of the closet and that this jacket was dated and I really needed to go rethink my wardrobe for the night. So in fact, we look at identities, we look at trends in the very same way. We can identify something that is aged, and so can the public. But uniquely, we can tell you why it is aged. And it's important that we be able to express that in what we do. So I start out with this. There is a program in the United States called NPR, National Public Radio, and I don't know if it's something that you have access to here, but they have a series of different authors that come on and talk. And one of my favorite is a gentleman named Jeff Entman, and he has a program that is called Here Be Dragons. And I'm going to come back to that because I love the name Here Be Dragons, but let me tell you, his program is about facing things that you're uncomfortable with. And I think as designers that we face things that we're uncomfortable with all the time. It's about kind of facing your boogeyman and finding out if you can stand up against it. It's about spiders, it's about phobias, it's about those things that really kind of make you creepy. But the thing I love about Here Be Monsters is the title. And this is where I think this associates with designers and the things that we have to put up with. The title, Here Be Monsters. I'm going to come back to that. Let's imagine that that's maybe the first logo. Now, I know it's not. But for the purpose of conversation, I kind of look at the Middle Ages and I kind of go, you know, these shields that, you know, people would go out into battle with. Oftentimes somebody had taken a hammer and they'd sledged into it an X or, you know, a heart or some other condition on there that would represent whatever the kingdom was that they were out there in battle for. And it was important because, I mean, that was a life and death kind of thing. If you went into battle and you recognized that the other side had some kind of identity, you know, hammered into theirs, you would recognize immediately that that was the person you were supposed to kill, not the other one with the X. So it was a life or death matter, those logos that were on there. And they were kind of logos in a way. I mean, it was the first identification, a symbol that represented something. But as you look at them, think about how long ago that was, and think about how far we have come in identity. I mean, we have come so dramatically far. Well, we didn't really, did we? We really haven't come very far. I mean, those shields, you couldn't really put a digital printout on or a sticker or anything like that. But when you start thinking about identity design is really happening in a very short window as we know it right now. And it isn't until the last few decades that it has really kind of taken off in some ways and started to explore areas that it was never willing to explore before. Now, about the same time, there was a lot of exploration going on around the world. There were aspects of the world that really had been totally unexplored, and there was a lot of map makers out there. And I believe that map makers wrote and drew some of the very best fiction ever created. If you think about it, there was a phrase that was often found on maps from this era, and the phrase was "Hic sunt draconis," which basically translates to "Here be dragons." You remember "Here be monsters"? Well, here be dragons. And I honestly don't believe that they really believed there were krakens that were going to grab the ship and pull it down under the water, or dragons that were going to breathe fire on you and kill you. But what was really going on when they put that Hic sunt draconis? Well, it was in an area that was unexplored. It was something that they didn't know about. And I think that those people that wrote Hic sunt draconis on the maps were often the naysayers. And as designers, we know the naysayers. They're the ones that we start to design something and look at us and they go, well, you know, it's never been done that way. You know, that won't work. It's the people that tell us what not to do. And everybody in this room, because you are talented individuals, has fought those dragons, and you've kind of, you know, hedged forward because you didn't listen to the person who told you you couldn't go there. You know, if you think about these characters, these dragons on here, and maybe if you go back to those shields and how simple those logos were that were on there, I think about the fact that, you know, these could all be logos. There we go. They're pretty nicely drafted. They're black and white. You know, there's not a lot of stuff going on in there, and they'd be easily reproduced, wouldn't they? Think about the last decade. Just what's happened in the last decade. Because the last thing you want to do is create a logo that's got transparent. Oh my God. Ah, crap. I'm sorry about that. You put a logo up there that's got transparency, that's not going to reproduce. You know, it's going to be an issue. You start creating transparencies on logos, you don't have that good negative space inside of there. And God forbid you ended up doing, a monoline logo. Don't do monoline logos because they're never going to reduce. You can never scale down a monoline logo. And whatever you do, please, God, do not put, if you put gradients in a logo, then you are going to hell. Maybe not. We don't live in a CMYK dominion anymore, do we? We live in an RGB dominion. And that kind of changed the rules. It meant that if we wanted to take a logo and we wanted to animate it, we could animate it. And that's just in the last 10 years, guys. So if there are that many dragons to be slain in just the last 10 years, if people are able to say, listen, those design canons that are out there, those hic sunt draconis are out there, then there's a future beyond this, because this is just where we're at right now. So I want you to think about where you go in the future. And as I'm talking about trends, it's because everything that I just showed you was at one point a trend in the trend reports that we were looking at, saying, you know, we're starting to see some more gradients, we're starting to see transparency, we're starting to see this monoline aesthetic. Everything came from somewhere else. When I start thinking about this, I kind of go, what's the solution for tomorrow? I don't know. Is it sonic logos? Well, we've already got sonic logos. They exist. Are they going to be used in a different way? Is it going to be tactile logos, something you touch? You know, haptic technology, which is probably about another 5 years away, is going to allow us to take a touch screen and touch it. And if it's a picture of water, it's going to feel like water. If it's leather, it's going to feel like leather. If you design a logo, what's it going to feel like? What happens if somebody touches it? It can be a screen, it can be a piece of glass. If you're Pirelli rubber, is it rubber? Is it going to touch you back? Is it going to have a different sensation? I start thinking about what the future is, and I start thinking about the idea that augmented reality means we walk into a space, or virtual reality means we walk into this, and if you've got a logo that you've designed inside of that space, is it just flat? Is it just hovering there in the air? What happens if you walk behind it? What's the backside look like? Is it a prop? Does it take on a different shape? Does it have substance? Does it feel like something? Does it have a personality? Does it squeak? Does it talk back? If you dropped it, would it bounce? Think about all those things, because really what we're designing as designers is we are driving that idea of a symbolism, some kind of symbolism. A symbolism doesn't necessarily mean it has to be visual. We certainly are great at that, but it is that thing that reminds somebody, it's that husk, and it reminds people of what's inside of there. It reminds people of that brand. I mean, that's the entire purpose for that particular image. So how it happens. I'm going to get that off my soapbox for a minute. Let me share with you just a little behind the curtains about how the trend report happens. And as I had indicated, Logo Lounge has 380-some thousand logos as of a couple of days ago, because we just ended our call for entry for book number 13. We're on the 13th book now. And when you take a look at Logo Lounge, it was really developed because I got tired of spending all my time going through the beautiful logo catalogs and books I have and post-it noting them to death. I was spending too much money on post-it notes. And I looked at eBay and I said, you know, if somebody in England can put a teapot on eBay and I can type in teapot and it pops up and I can read about the teapot and I can buy that teapot, I should be able to do about the same thing with logos. So we asked designers to start uploading, and with my friendships with some really wonderful designers, we started Logo Lounge and them uploading their logos and putting the keywords on it. And it was from that the design community just kind of embraced it. And so today we stand with all these logos, but the difference is there's context. So that you can sit there and you can type in rabbit, or you can type in, I want to see the good rabbits, or I want to see something from a certain industry, or by a certain designer, or from a certain type, or from a symbol basis, or where they're from in the world. All these ways to look at them, so that if you typed in Fox, you would get all these wonderful, you know, images that you could look at for reference or inspiration, or to say, damn it, it's already been done. And that's important too, sometimes, that we know the difference. It helps us. Series of books over the years that we've put together, including Logo Creed, the textbook on identity design, the master library, so on and so forth. That was the last book that we put out, was Logo Lounge book 12, which was so big we had to put 3,000 logos in it. Here's how the actual sort goes. In February of every year, my wife says goodbye to me. I go to the office and I look through every logo one at a time that has been submitted in the last year. I will tell you that with this particular book, which will be book 13, that there were 38,000 logos that were submitted. So that means I'm going to one at a time go through 38,000 logos. And I start pulling off anything that has any nuance, anything that seems to have some degree of originality to me. And it doesn't mean that there aren't other trends. There's lots of trends going on. But once I pull those together, I end up making these kind of big 10 by 10 squares of logos. And I pull out the logos one at a time and I go, that logo looks kind of like that logo. And oh, it has the same effect as that. And I start to build what are my clusters. And these are just, you know, a few of the clusters that start to come together that start to show exactly what's, you know, going on. So I pull these together, and sometimes there's too many within a certain group, or sometimes there aren't enough within a group. But it just kind of gives me an insight as to, okay, in the last 365 days, what do I see here that I didn't see in the prior 365 days? And from that, I end up taking them and knocking them down. I pull out some examples of each of these, and I usually send out about 50, and I've got a group of designers around the world, designers of identity, that I go to, and I send these out, and we ask them, which ones of these do you think are going to have the greatest impact? Which ones of these have some nuance to them that you've not seen before? And that's where we come up with the logo trends. Now, first, before I get into the logo trends, I want to point out that in the last year, there has been a dramatic shift from just the mark and the logo, and God knows I love the logo. You know, I mean, that's why it's called Logo Lounge. But at the same time, I think that the identifying factor, you know, the brand DNA, the visual vocabulary, whatever language you want to use to define it, pattern and animation have taken on an entirely new status in brand design. And that is that, you know, it used to be that you would look at the logo first and go, it's IBM, or it's Under Armour, or whatever it is. And then you would notice the folderol that goes on around. And now you notice the folderol first, and then you notice the logo. And I think that that has had an effect somewhat on the fact that logos have started to become a little bit calmer in some respects over the last couple of years. But I always say that I think anything happening in logo design is a pendulum, and it's going to swing back the other way. And designers love nothing more than a void. When you see a void, run to that corner, because that's where you're going to be able to draw attention away from everybody else. And as I start kind of taking a look at these, I look at the Electronic Sports League. They're you know, really bright use of pattern, but of course this is geared specifically towards people that are into electronic gaming. And you know, it works for them. Same thing with DreamHack, which is also geared towards electronic gamers. And you can see that aesthetic, but I would challenge you after this to tell me what was the logo and what was the pattern. And you're going to remember the pattern inside of those and the animation that goes on. I just had to throw this in here for you, Bob, because I figured a little bit of football was good for you. You know, but you start looking at these identities, and it really is about the pattern. You know, as nice a little logo as that Kokoro is, it's not what you notice on there. It's the pattern that's going on. I thought that Adidas, with the use for Future Natural, did a really exceptional job of basically taking pattern and working it into their identity. And you'll see the Future Natural logo here in just a little bit, but you'll see how that kind of pattern carries into the logo and how the two of them kind of merge together. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the trends. There are a total of 15 of these, and then I'm going to admonish you what not to do. By the way, the stuff that I'm showing you up here, I am the reporter. All I'm doing is telling you this is what I'm seeing. I'm not telling you I like it. I'm not telling you to go do it. As a matter of fact, what I'm telling you is don't go do it, but go stand on the shoulders of it. Because everything that's in here may be at the edge right now, but next year it's going to be at the back of the line. So I need you to stand on the shoulders of the stuff that I show you and figure out how are you going to evolve that to the front. Every year there is some shape, there is some element, there is some symbol that ends up just plaguing our selections. It's everywhere. Last year, there was an exceptional number of lightning bolts. I don't know why, couldn't tell you. This year, the asterisk is everywhere. And one of the thoughts on this is an asterisk literally translates in Latin to little star in there. Is, you know, it's a wonderful shape, whether it's got 5 or 6 or 8 points to it. It kind of has that magical quality to it, and it's something that can be used as a little support element, or it can be used as this primary element within this. But I will tell you the thing that I found most interesting about the asterisk is the invention of new symbology. So the asterisk has been with us for at least 2,000 years, as we discussed with a class last night. But if you really start to think about it, it has created an evolution in and of itself, because with the introduction of cannabis being more and more prevalent in society, that little asterisk has lowered its center and become this universal symbol for cannabis. Okay, now we didn't have that 5 years ago. We didn't have that 3 years ago, to the point that cannabis manufacturers, cannabis producers are using this symbol generically and universally as a symbol. You know, and you've got to think about context, because now it means something to us, and it does relate to the symbol of the leaf, and it does relate to an asterisk and what an asterisk might mean, but it didn't exist 5 years ago, and symbols are continually evolving, continually changing. This is one that really is kind of hard to describe a little bit. It's the off jog, and you know, we've seen plenty of logos that basically look like a flag where the flag has been shifted, yeah, or twisted. But these are ones that what I really love, and you can really see it in bank contact, it's not really so much a twist as it is coming up to a point and that line continuing on. And when it continues on, the most interesting point of all of these is that point where it diminishes and vanishes and then comes back. And what it does is it indicates this idea of there is a shift, there is a change within the company. In bank contact, we were here. These are our colors. We were doing great, but man, we've shifted up to another level. A new generation is running the bank. We've shifted up there, and you know the Icebox logo, which Jay Fletcher designed. It is for a surf company, and what they've done is they basically have indicated the point break, which is that point for surfers where you get the ideal wave, that ideal surf wave that kind of comes up. And again, it's that point where you make a little shift. So I wanted to put that up just because I was in Italy. Okay, that's it. No other reason. No, and actually it's a very American pizza, and I'm sure it would never pass muster here. But it is because my friend Burton Kramer in 1974 was responsible for the development of the logo for the Canadian Broadcast Company. And that's the logo. And I will tell you that as a young man, he'd actually come up to do work in Canada for the expo that was going on there initially. And when he was approached to do this, everybody at the Canadian Broadcast Company was just nervous as hell about that logo. It had too many colors, it had too many parts, it had too many pieces. It was, you know, it was too contemporary. It was, you know, everything that they could imagine they didn't want. But the president got behind it and said, we're going to stick with it. Now, mind you, that's 1974. I was born, I was around, but that little animation that was referred to internally as the exploding pizza, which is the reason that I shared the picture of the pizza exploding. By the way, Burton hated that description of it. He much preferred calling it a kaleidoscope. No, I'll give him that. But that particular effect is coming back into style, which is basically we're going to splice and dice an image. We're going to start to separate it out. Now, whether the pieces are still connected or whether they separate entirely, whether they're going up and down or vertically or diagonally, doesn't really matter. But the point is it gives this idea of expansion. It gives this idea of multi-product. And I always kind of come back to, what is it? What did the client's design brief say that led me to this? You know, I love the fact that Burton had a quote years ago that said, you know, when you're designing, and he said, I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically says, As a designer, if you're designing something for a client and you design something that is very pretty, you've designed something that is very pretty but it is not effective. But if you have gone to your client and they have told you what they need and you design something that performs that function, then you have been an effective designer. And these are effective designs. I love this one. Now, I don't know about here, but in America, occasionally a business will go out of business and somebody else will pop up in there and there'll be a sign out front and they'll say, you know, I can't really afford a sign, so they'll go out with some duct tape and they'll kind of like spell out their name with tape on the sign. And it's really cheesy and cheap. Or occasionally a lawn worker might, you know, spell out their name or their phone number on the side of the truck that they're driving. With electric tape. And I love the fact that, in particular, I'm really fond of this Czech Skateboard Association logo in here. But obviously, you know, the commonality in here is it's all straight lines. There are no curves. These are all monoline segments that are put together. But the thing I love about them is the haphazard nature. It's kind of like, you know what, guys, I'm not going to try and finesse this thing. I'm not going to try and pull one over on you, because the kind of client that I'm representing isn't that kind of a client. And if you take a look at these, even the connection points in here, it's kind of, they purposely didn't put them together just the right way. They say, I don't really care. This is how it's going to go together. Now, the fact that they are using the Czech double-tailed lion rampant as part of the logo on a longboard, I think is brilliant. I like that idea. It kind of is a bad boy idea. But I love even more the fact that they were smart enough to go, I don't want to clean this thing up. If a skateboarder were going to do this on their skateboard, hell, this is exactly how they would do it. And it works. Really well done. By the way, that was done by Frank Atelier Design. So these things are kind of mesmerizing, kind of magical to me, and a lot of people hate them. There's a large contingency that could just care less for gradients, but I think that you have to remember that you are trying to capture the consumer's imagination, and sometimes candy does that. And for all of these, the thing that is common in here is there basically is a single design that has been duplicated, mirrored, and dropped on top of itself, and created in a transparent fashion, so that you get this essence of multiplication in there. You know, one of the beautiful things about transparency, and this goes back to Enron, which some of you are too young to remember, but Enron, at the time that it failed as a financial planning institution and manager of money, failed at the very same time that Illustrator invented the ability to do transparencies in real time. Before that, you used to go into Photoshop and you'd say, hey, I wonder what that would look like if it was on top of that, and then you would go to lunch and you'd come back and see if it was done. Not yet, okay. You know, and it would take forever, but because they could do that in real time, they found that the financial institutions were so scared of what had happened with Enron, they started coming out to their marketing groups and they'd say, show that we are transparent. We're unlike Enron. We are transparent so that people can see what is going on with their funds that are invested with us. What did designers do? They took it literally. They said, I'll show you transparency. Because I've got Illustrator. Yeah, and every logo started coming out with the illustration and doing transparencies. You know, there's something magical about these. There's something rhythmic about them. There is something about flopping something over that gives this consistency to it, which is detail-oriented and speaks well for any kind of a company in general. These are all over the place because we live with icons, we live with symbols as a group. It's kind of like going out into the garage and gathering up all these symbols and kind of going, I'm going to make a stack. We're going to have a resort. There's some water. Couple of lines that are wavy, a house, a moon, nope, a sun, there we go, sun, a house, and it's a resort, you know? But the thing that makes these really wonderful is the negative space between them. It's this idea that you've got this creamy marshmallow filling between them that is just wide enough and just enticing enough that it really does work almost as a new icon itself, but it's just basically the stacking of icons. Fours, God, you know, you can divide up a square in a lot of ways. You could divide it up into 4, you could divide it up into 16, to 9, you know, but 4 works out pretty well. If you got 4 things that you want to share with people, and again, remember I said I didn't propose all of these as directions to go, that some of these I don't care for. You know, people have been doing things in 4s for forever, but in the last year, we have seen more of these quad logos where everybody's kind of going, hey, brilliant, we've got 4 different sections to the museum, so, okay, we've only got 3 sections, but we can put the name up here in the 4th square, we'll put the things that they do in these 3, and we'll, you know, but it's a method of doing things. It's a method of organizing. It can be as simple as the Google Fiber, where frankly those are quarter circles instead of squares, but it comes together as the 4 squares. Chains. This is one that, you know, when you think about a wavy line, you tend to think of water, or if you turn it vertically, you think about the idea of steam or smoke kind of rising. And imagine that serpentine line, except the fact that that serpentine line doesn't give you any weight. It's very hard to deal with positive and negatives with a serpentine line outside of making the line just really fat. But by taking it and running a line down the middle and sequentially filling each of those spaces with positive, negative, you end up coming up with this really kind of enticing visual when you start to talk about positives and negatives. And again, it's one of the, and by the way, if you're doing a logo that has a letter S in it, you're golden. It's real easy. Janice. Cosmo, we had a good conversation about this. Obviously, variable fonts have been around for several years now. And I made the comment that designers, if a variable font is used properly, which obviously a variable font is, you've got a font and you can make it fatter, or you can make it skinnier, or you can make it condensed, or you can make it extended. The thing about a variable font is that it was designed to say, I'm looking for this weight and for this version of it, and I'm going to use it, and then you use it. But designers were taken with the idea of not selecting one of those, but of the demonstration of, man, this thing shifts around, so that as you start to think about a variable font, you start to get into things like this, except now we've shifted over from variable fonts where it's just within a specific font to possibly a sans serif and a serif that are shifting back and forth between themselves, or any other iteration inside of there. And you know, for the client that has the right product, and Canal Brazil is basically the multimedia watching channel, if you will, delivery device for the country of Brazil. And you know, it's fine because this works on screen, and you get that kind of Fluido variable fonts. They actually develop many of these. This kind of, if you take a look at Glyphs, they also have a product that allows you to take 2 fonts and do this. Or what you can do is you can go to Zeta Fonts and buy the real stuff and really work with great fonts. Just wanted to throw in a plug for you there, Cosmo. It's all good because they are good things. Working their way into logos. Okay, I remember as a child sitting inside of a picture window in our house and the rain coming down on the window and being mesmerized watching the drops as they would come down the window. And you may have done the same thing. As a matter of fact, I know you have. And it may have been on a glass of iced tea or something. But the drop that starts coming down, you almost start betting on how it's going to connect with which other raindrop along the way is going to come in. And pretty soon, those drops turn into this river that, you know, by the time you get to the bottom of the window, you've got this river of water that's kind of torrent that's kind of coming down. And the thing that I love about that is that each one of those drops is an individual entity. But when it connects, it merges into a singleton. So is this a demonstration of the idea of force multiplier? The idea that something that the sum of many is greater than the sum of the individuals as they start to come together. And I love to be able to look at things like the oars logo, where that one little drop is sitting out there on its own, and you can already see that the other two have connected, and it's that close. It's just in that tenuous position where it's just about ready to join into the rest of them and become part of a larger group. And I want you to think aesthetically what that drives symbolically to a consumer. It's this idea of these things connecting to create something greater than where it started. Or possibly it's this idea of things breaking apart into separate pieces. But I love the idea of people are already familiar with that action. Let's take that action and symbolically put it into use to describe what we're trying to symbolize. I mentioned earlier Future Natural. They use these patterns extensively with these drops kind of merging together in there and digitally being animated in such a fashion that it really represents that product even more so than their logo. Very good. Now, it's hard for me to put up a bunch of circles and tell you guys that that's a trend. Takes a lot of guts, but it is. And it's not that we haven't seen circles or rings, or as you would actually call a circle with the hole punched out in the middle of it, an annulus. It's the idea of the treatment of the surface. And because for so many years, the surface of a logo was just a solid color, it was an aspect of the logo that wasn't able to convey information. So as designers, if you start looking at the surface too, it's whatever the shape conveys, but then the surface becomes this secondary. It's kind of like punching through that fourth wall. It gives you that ability to show something else meaningful. So every time I look at gradients going on, I tend to think of transition, motion, shifting from point A to point B, hot to cold, sweet to sour, fast to slow, so that you can start to take a look at a ring and you can see that this gradient of red warms up, comes around, cools down, and you know, it has symbology just within the gradient. You know, I mean, a couple of simple gradients on that first one that you see there. You know, is that a portal to some other place? But it has dimension. It suddenly takes on this level of dimension that turns it into something more than just a ring. With a ring, you always get the idea of eternity and completeness and life and everything else that you want, but it's taking the surface and pushing it that extra degree. Swingers. Oh, by the way, I get to name these whatever I want to, and it's usually because I'm drunk with no sleep, and I'm sitting there pulling out these logos. I don't know, they're swingers. They're just kind of, you know, and then it sticks. But this idea is the idea of a, you know, we've seen plenty of logos in motion. You start to see some transparency in some of these, but it's this idea of having a core pivot point. And I want you to think about an industry, a client, you know, an organization that has that core element of it, that it has flexibility, but it doesn't ever lose its core values. It always stays, you know, anchored to this one place, yet it is flexible. And how do you demonstrate that? And I think that all of these start to give that idea, whether it's using kind of an ombre effect, as in the violet or the red in the middle, or if it's using transparencies in there. Again, not recommending, just telling you, just reporting. Dog tags. Isn't that amazing that that many people are designing dog tags? I mean, I swear to God, it's just, you got a shot of that? Good, because those aren't real. Yeah, I'm sorry, they didn't really have those notches on, but they look like dog tags. As a child, there used to be these vending machines that you could put a quarter in, and you could take a coin and you could stamp out whatever you wanted to onto that coin letter-wise. But you only had like 72 characters, so you had to, you know, and as designers, I look at these and it's kind of like we're doing all this self-editing to shove the type into there. And you notice the type is not pretty. It is, but it isn't. I mean, it's just straightforward type, and the kerning is for shit. You know, it doesn't look good on there. But what it does is it gives that sense of immediacy of, I don't care, I'm going to get this information down. But look at how all of them have this pattern to them. They all have this texture to them. And you can identify that texture just by looking at them, can't you? And usually it's the same font. It's not always the same font. There's very seldom a graphic that goes inside with it. Usually the shape of the tag itself is whatever is conveying that idea of love or a heart or a circle or whatever is coming down on that. But I think you think about what client that's good for. And always, you've always got to keep that in mind. I'm showing you all these things, but obviously there is a client for everything. But not everything is for every client. Just my poor homage in keynote to what Star Wars, I guess. And it's because I got to looking at these logos and I suddenly realized that it kind of reminded me of the opening of Star Wars. I refer to this as rods, and we've seen plenty of halos. We've seen plenty of multi-lines coming out, arrays coming out, indicating that something is ethereal or that something is angel-like or something that is magical about it. But the thing that's unique about this is a rounding off of either end of these. When you think about a rod, I think about a dot or a period might be a dash, depending on which angle you're looking at it from. And as I start to take a look at these, I start to realize that, I'm willing to bet everybody in this room at one point or another has designed a logo, and I'm going to use a star as an example, where I've got like this 5-pointed star that's uniquely designed. And you present it to the client, and the client looks at it and they say, yeah, but it's real pointy. Well, a star's pointy. It's got 5 points to it. Of course it's pointy. And we think, are they stupid? Don't they get that a star has points to it? Our cortex was designed as human beings to avoid things that are sharp. It taught us when we were crawling around out in the bush not to crawl in bushes that had thorns, to not step on something that was pointy, to avoid the tooth of an animal that was coming at you. All those things are kind of inbred into us. So it gives reason when somebody takes something that typically is pointy and starts to round it off and develop that level of friendliness to it. And I think we've known that for a long time, but there you go. Etchings, and there's absolutely nothing new about etchings except for the delivery device. There was a period of time when the only way that you could deliver an image was to deliver an etched image if you wanted to give that idea of dimensionality or if you wanted to give that idea of gradient. But I think that this new era, if you will, of etching is coming about based off of newer technology. You notice all of these are designed using the kind of line work that's going to probably reproduce digitally pretty well. It's going to scale okay digitally. It doesn't have that depth of detail necessarily, but we even had this conversation. I'm trying to recall. I know that Bob and I had this, and I think Cosmo and I maybe even talked a little bit about this idea of nostalgia. And it's very easy for a generation that didn't live in the generation something was initially developed to romanticize what happened then. And they've been told of this generation. They heard that the Roaring '20s was, very free time, and that people were doing a lot of experimentation, and that it was romantic, and it was, we hear these things, and we don't hear the bad stuff. We hear the good stuff. And when we recreate something from nostalgia, it doesn't matter because, frankly, there's nobody left around that was living during that period of time that can tell you you're wrong. So you can draw it forward. And it's one of the reasons that if you buy a bottle of gin or a bottle of chocolates or a good deck of playing cards, you're going to find all kinds of this illustration on it. But it carries forward. You think about the original Quaker Oats guy, and he was, I love what Saul Bass did to him. I think that was much more effective. And as of recent, I think they've decided that they're going to rework the Quaker Oats guy. You'll notice he's lost a couple of chins. He's had his hair permed, and that his scarf is now chiffon and kind of wafting over to the side. I'm just saying. By the way, Quaker Oats has a name for him. It's Larry. Larry. Quit it. By the way, that's the 15 trends, so at this point, we're just about done. All I've got to do is tell you that, damn it, there's too many trees out there. And I'm talking pine trees and palm trees because, you know, there just aren't that many people that need a pine tree, or there aren't that many Christmas tree farms and beaches to have that, and birds. Guys, you keep drawing these damn birds with one line. You know, I don't believe half of these things were really done for a client. I think you guys are just playing. You're jacking with me. That's all, I mean. Oh, and stabbing shit. Quit sticking things in things. Everybody's drawing swords this year, and I mean, happy swords and mad swords. We're sticking swords and everything. And when you start to think about swords, I mean, I think there's some pretty mean people out there just wanting to cut stuff up. I'm not entirely sure what they want to cut up, but then we start getting logos of things that have been cut up, cutting up pigs and cats. Who cut up the cat? I think that might be illegal. I'm not, oh, I know that's illegal. You cut a hand. Oh, God's sake, whatever you do, don't axe the eagle's head. That has to be illegal. One last thing. I shared this last night, and this is about how to think about trends and moving forward. I'm sharing with you a map of the US. I didn't have time to put together a good one for Italy or understand the geography here well enough to give my example. You'll notice that there's a pin right in the middle. Frankly, that's about where Wichita, Kansas is located, which is where I'm from. If I were to give that map to somebody and say that pin represents an individual who's traveling, can you tell me where they're going to be tomorrow? Nobody in this room can give me a good answer. And it's not that you're not smart, it's because you don't have enough information. But if at the same time I were to say, you know what, that traveler, yesterday was about 500 miles to the west, and the day before that, 500 miles further to the west, and you can see where that person has been, then it's pretty easy for you to speculate where that person is going to be. If they're smart, they're going to be about another 500 miles in that direction, and they're probably going to be, I don't know, in Memphis, maybe Nashville if they're smart. Having that information, looking back in logos at where they have been, is your key to seeing where they are going to be in the future. That first pin I showed you is where the person is today, but the only way you know where a trend is going is by looking at a continuum. If I were to show you cars, which have been around for about 120 years here, 110 years, and I show you the very first car and I show you a car from today, you can sequentially look at those and you can visualize how they have evolved, can't you? But if I stole the middle chunk of that and I just showed you the first car and I just showed you the last car, you have no clue of evolution. You can't tell me what the next step is going to be. You don't know which direction things are pointing, do you? That's Logo Lounge. Logo Lounge really invites everybody to be part of it. It's a $100 membership a year. Yeah, I'm a capitalist, but it pays for making the thing happen. One last thought. The Trend Report is free. Everybody can download the Trend Report or go to the Trend Report and look through 20 years worth of trends that we've evolved. Here's a quick example. In 2018, we were reporting on Tumbled the idea of taking a star and rounding off the edges of it. In 2020, we started talking about this idea of pixels and soldered circuitry kind of coming together and having this curvature kind of rounded off, kind of connecting. By looking at those, could you predict maybe, okay, maybe those squares turn into circles so that we've now got those levels of connection that get us over here to mergers? And where does that go? Do we start spreading out like that? Does it start becoming more of a figment? Is it something that starts to vanish? What's that next step in the evolution? I think that when the folks at Future Natural were putting that logo together, they may or may not have been looking at some of that. They may or may not have been thinking about some of that. I love the animation on that. And I love the fact that it basically picks up on some of these graphic trends. And it's a logo whether you like the fact that it's animated or not. If you go into our reports, you'll find that I'm also an author for the folks at LinkedIn Learning, and I went through an entire thing last night explaining how you can start to spot trends and start to track trends in there. That's me with my really red face on LinkedIn Learning. The 2021 report just got released. And one final thing, on etchings, at least in America, there's a saying that you never want to work with kids or dogs. Kids or dogs are always going to steal the show. So when they were working with Nipper to put together that logo, keep in mind that originally that logo looked like that. And the reason that it was an etching as opposed to a photograph, because they could photograph at the time that they were doing this logo, is because this is what the photo session looked like for that. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bill, for reminding us, first and before all, how logos are changing. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years, from a technical point of view, from black and white to motion graphics. On the other hand, also from, let's say, a stylistic point of view, with all these elements of romanticism and so on. And I think that also another point is, there are other, now we have other means to transfer, other tools to communicate identity, such as the texture you show that are in part, in motion or without motion, are part, I mean, a really important part of our communication and the communication of the identity. Now, please, if you have some questions, please remind them and ask them at the end of the debate, so we can collect them all together. I would like to invite Armando Milani, Bob Liuzzo, and Cosimo Lorenzo Pancini to sit and discuss a little bit about what Bill said, and in particular, well, they became friends altogether, as usual. And well, I think just a very, very short question, I think starting from Cosimo. Cosimo Lorenzo Pancini established a design company in Florence, Studio KM0, but also a foundry. So he designs typefaces, Zetafont, sorry. And Zetafont also have an agreement with European Institute of Design to distribute its font with a discount, right? And well, I would like to start with you because, well, logo, well, we are talking about logo. In ancient, the origin, the etymology of the word logo means words, means names, right, better. And so, well, you design letters, and letters are quite important for defining this style also of a logo. So can you give us some suggestion about what we saw and the evolution of logo from the typeface point of view, let's say, in the latest 10 years?
Okay, yes, I must say that I'm really pleased to be here with Bill, thanks to the invitation of Bob, because actually when we started creating typefaces, we just wanted to know, what typefaces do we want to do, what do we want to use? So we looked around, and at first you just take inspiration from what you see. But then we discovered Logo Lounge, and we discovered that there was someone who's just putting together for us all the examples of what was looking cool and interesting to us, and was explaining that. And that led us to think, well, maybe it's not just about my taste of the moment. Maybe just, if I can look properly at many examples, then I can see what is driving, the direction of what is interesting. And we try to apply this to typefaces. We try to do trend reports for typefaces. We stole the idea from Bill, basically.
Let's be honest. I stole it from somebody else.
And now this is just 3 years old. You can find on our website, it's free, our report. And we try to understand what happens with typefaces. What are the good typefaces for logo design? What is changing? And so this is everything that Bill said is extremely interesting, and it resonates with me because I have been a graphic designer before being a typeface designer. And what you want to do is you want to use typefaces that are meaningful for your clients, that mean something. But probably, the old typefaces you feel they are a bit the same. They have not that richness you want to put. You want to put originality, you want to put meaning. And you know, Helvetica is good, but maybe you want something more. And so we realized that we want a complexity today. We want a complexity that is very different and it's a complex word. So our typefaces, we want to express that. And the interesting thing, and I'm quoting Bill again, is that sometimes you have two different trends that are extremes, because the graphic, you know, is like a pendulum that swings between opposite. Maybe there's a moment which everything is very simple and then becomes very complex and noise. Maybe you go less is more and then you go to more is more. And so this happens in typefaces too. And we are now seeing, for example, a trend in typefaces which are very exuberant and serifs, which almost melt down, and you have these liquid, you know, almost lysergic typefaces. And we understand that this means something. There means your desire to express the complexity and the fluid nature of our world. We have issues about accepting also, you know, the complexity of gender, the themes of inclusion. So you want a typeface that's not neutral, but it expresses the possible spectrum. And at the same time, at the opposite end of the spectrum, you sometimes want something that is extremely neutral, because you want to express such complexity in something that doesn't, you know, take just a position. So this is why you see a lot of geometric sans serif. You see these typefaces with are a little bland, let's say. They're not so special. Bill invented a wonderful term that is that branding that you do with a bland typeface, and it's called blending. Okay, it's like all these fashion logos that you see, that they're basically the same. Okay, put a nice Gotham there, love Gotham typeface, sorry Effler, but put a nice Montserrat, nice Google font, and yeah, it's looking good because it's neutral. And that makes sense. I mean, your client may have so much complexity in his brand that he may need his logo wordmark to be as transparent so everybody can see himself in that. And that is a dimension, and that makes sense. So this is why, for example, we try to study typefaces that look, you know, neutral, that can be strong, that can be used for everything, but they can also be neutral. At the opposite, we want, you know, we want feeling, we want projects that have impact, that have life. I love the Janus examples, you know, variable typefaces. I want something that is both sans serif and serif at the same time. I want animation, and I don't always have animation, maybe I print something. So I'll make something with all the possible, we create typefaces, we call one typeface Hagrid, like the character from Harry Potter, because Hagrid loved monsters and collect them. So our typefaces are all the possible serifs together. It's a collection of monsters. And I believe that this is basically now, what's important for every designer right now is really to be aware of what is happening around us. Because we are not mere, you know, aesthetically doing trendy, nice little drawings. What we are doing is, yeah, looking at trends and trying to see where things are going and trying to be there with our design. I believe this came naturally to great masters like Armando, who could make a simple image and, you know, make a symbol for a very complex thought, like his poster for peace. It's a striking, simple, perfect image. Today, our world is so messy and noisy and so many levels. Sometimes we have to study a lot and find what expresses for us best and for our clients. So this is my suggestion. I mean, look at the trend reports, sign up to Logo Lounge. For us, it's always a constant inspiration. And if you want some extra input, yes, you can download the free trend report from our website and find the meaning and the story behind each line, single line you draw in your project.
Thank you, Cosimo, and thank you also because I wanted to start from that poster you mentioned, the white dog. Armando Milani needs no presentation. I think he is one of the master of Italian graphic design and design in general. Several years in New York, working with Massimo Vignelli. From 1983 in Agis, that is probably the Gotha of the international graphic design. And Armando, Cosimo was mentioning that very, very famous poster. And what reminds me that the dove is a symbol that becomes an image, it comes back to be a symbol through your picture, your poster.
Yeah, I think it becomes a symbol because it's very well known. It's become an icon of my work, no? And I'm very pleased about that. And today, after looking at your work, I would like to take my dove and make it fly, and having music or something like that, no? Would be a fantastic interpretation.
I think it's perfect the way you did it.
You like it? Thank you, thank you. No, it was very interesting because I was coming back from Beijing. I was a jury for the Red Cross, where we were judging 500 posters for peace. And coming back on my trip, no, from Beijing, I was thinking what I would have done. No, so I started to think about the dove with an heart in the beak. And after I said, no, I put an A and I take the A to war, peace. And after coming back I was in Paris at that point, and my daughter, which is very smart, said, but where is the war? And I was thinking, it's true, it's an A, so I take the A from war and move into peace. And what I like in my work is I realized last month that I always, even if it's a flat image, there is always a movement. I've always, and I would like really to be able to make it like you in your sparkling presentation, beautiful presentation. And I think you translate your energy in your work, and it's fantastic.
Good. Thank you so much.
Compliment.
Very kind of you.
But Armando, let me please insist a little bit, because you have several posters that had been icons first and that became symbols. I remember the poster for the 11th of September. That was absolutely peculiar. I mean, the synthesis was magnificent, and it became a sort of symbol, because everywhere you talk about 11th September, that poster came out.
Yeah, what I would like to tell to the students, that you always have to have in mind something to do, and looking around yourself, walking on the street, looking at the newspaper, speaking with people. For instance, about the one that you said 11,
the 9/11?
9/11.
9/11, yeah.
I was walking in Paris and I saw two candles in a window, and the shape was exactly the shape of the two towers. So I bought the two candles and I took a picture, and it was fantastic. But that's to tell you that it's always important to keep in mind something, problem to solve, and until when you find something that is really adapt to the work that you want to do.
There is something similar to what we were saying to students yesterday during the workshop. I mean, the marvel to have elements that can stay together with a different point of view, let's say, with something that make them.
I wonder if this guy is sleep in the night, because I thought so many.
That is a curiosity to me also.
Because
the main question is
how many logo did you design?
No, these aren't my designs.
No, but some, some of yours are also just putting together. It takes time.
I have very talented designers work, much like Massimo had very talented designers working for him. You know, kind of pairing off of those two candles in the window, we catalog in our minds all of those things that we understand will give reference to a mark that we create, to a design that we create. And when I start to think about the background that designers need to be effective designers, one of the things that occurs to me is that you need to be as broad in your education as possible. You know, I've spent the last couple of days with Bob, and I don't know if you know this or not, Bob's a genius.
They already know.
They
Everybody knows. He has been paid for that.
as Bob relates history of
Don't
this
you?
city and relates it to culture and relates it to politics. And when we hire a designer, one of the things that is most valuable to me, you can look at someone's book and you can quickly tell whether or not they've gotten up here, but they may not have figured out from a perspective of how to think yet, but they know how to get it down. And when we hire a designer, I love a designer that is well read, one that is not just interested in design, but interested in many things, that has many talents. Because if you had, Armando, if you'd been asked to design that poster and you said, well, great, there's these two towers and they came down, and you're just kind of stuck there. It's not until you recall seeing those two candles in the window and the symbology of a candle that's burning, both being in flames and also meaning eternal life, and this idea of having fervor for something that comes from the symbolism of these candles. I mean, it means so many things when you pull it together. And when we were talking last night, it was this idea of the students were randomly taking various things that they had selected and trying to force them together into a logo. And it wasn't that it was going to create a good logo, but it was designed to create an ability for them to think about, how does a raindrop and a peacock and a leaf relate? And one of the students goes, well, great, a raindrop is kind of shaped like a raindrop, and if you take a look at a peacock's tail, it has that little spot, the little eye on a peacock's tail, which is the shape of a raindrop. And if you take a look at a leaf, it can be the shape, and pulling those things together, and it's that ability to connect those dots and pull those smart things together that imbue something with that new meaning that somebody has never thought of before.
25 years ago, 2,500 years ago.
Oh, come on, you weren't around then.
In the Paleolithic age.
I know for a fact.
Confucius.
Okay.
Okay.
Confucius maybe yes. It was
Okay.
It was
We'll give you
Friend
that.
of us,
He
don't
used to
worry.
say there is no word or law that make the future, no?
Yeah.
The rule for the world, but symbol and images. And another philosopher, Roland Barthes, said that is the one image worth 1,000 words. No? And so we are in the right track.
We trust them. And, Bob, well, I asked Bob to be part of this conversation because he didn't want, of course, he is shy, so
He's a genius.
as you perfectly know.
In
fact, he has
but I am.
inside, you're shy inside, maybe not
But
outside.
it's outside that is not.
That's why he wears glasses, of course. And
Okay, we're going to have to go over that one later.
Sorry.
They hold my brain.
Okay.
because of the superpower of his
Okay.
eyes, the X-rays coming out. Bob, I ask you because first, before because we share a common passion for pop culture, and in pop culture, trademarks, let's say, are particular.
The ugly one.
The ugly
You can
one,
say the ugly
exactly,
one,
exactly, the ugly one. I mean, the one we usually miss, we don't consider, we don't put in the history of graphic design. But on the other hand, your logo for the city of Catania is something like not a generative logo because it's not like that from a technical point of view, but it's a generative logo because it generates community. Because it's, plus it has to be shared with people. So. And that is a particular case of logo. I mean, something that is not yours, let's say. It's not of the city of Catania, intending the institution. It's of the people of Catania.
It's
maybe.
one of the. I mean, I know Bill now is gonna hate me probably after 3 intense days.
But I hate you, don't worry.
I know you already hate
I
me.
already hate
This is
you.
why I love you. But I strongly believe, I don't believe in logos anymore. They will die. They will be something else. There is just the concept of logo. And the project you say, the independent symbol of Catania, when someone calls it logo, I get mad. Then you have to, go through and say, yes, it's a logo, okay.
I love that logo you did for
I know you love that logo.
How would you call it?
Independent symbol, system, call it as you wish. We are under the effect of the rules for so many time. I strongly believe, I'm just kidding, in everything there is a trajectory, a trend. Strongly believe in that rule that of marketing would say, don't let people think, you know? They have to buy, they have to enroll, they have to subscribe, I don't know. I strongly believe, like Armando teach me, while we eat together, it's always a big lesson, graphic design have to stand to make people think and act and recognize something. I don't believe in graphic design as a job anymore. Graphic design is a tool. Our job is an Illustrator, Photoshop, tools, right? If you write under your name on your business card, graphic designer, it's like writing computer operator for me, right now. We are a point of view maker. And everything must be able to collect community by following a trend. We have to recognize the invisible part. This is something good, but there is the invisible part that counts, not the final logo. And that project, for those who doesn't know, that you can follow the history on Instagram by checking Catania Project, was a symbol in my drawer since 12 years. And it represents not the simplicity, because we spend a lot of time talking about the synthesize, reaching the simplicity instead of reaching the essence. The candle of Armando reached the essence because in slow motion of the Twin Tower collapsing. It happened in a couple of seconds, right? But it stands till now. That tower's still collapsing in our mind. It doesn't matter if you leave it in front of the tower in the TV or you study in a book. So if towers can become a candle, systems have to identify where we come from and where we are going through the essence. Finding the essence is not easy. Simplify something like a cat with a TV and to say we are a YouTube channel doing video of cats. It's easy. It's synthesized. Take an element from here, an element from here, and it's done. Finding a geometry that can express, for those who doesn't know the symbol, is a simple crossing of line representing with colors. And a lot of people say to me, you can design a logo with colors immediately. Because logo have to stand in black and white. If you have to send a fax, if you have to send a black and white photocopy, if I ever, when they invent time travel machine, probably, but when is the last fax you sent? Probably at the IED secretary, know them. But this is another story.
Because
Sorry
it's vintage.
It's vintage.
We are trendy.
We love this kind of nostalgia. So I think we have to create also system, and Bill showed it very well with pattern design. Sometimes pattern, it's like decoration and that's it. It's not true. I see a couple of very good designers over here. There is a Liber over there who is a product designer. There is Jared who is a wonderful graphic designer. Just to mention some, there is the guys from Graficato who are best logo designer and logo, how can I say, speakers. They educate people about the beauty of design in Italy. And this is important too. Otherwise logos, it's just the keychain on your key. We select very carefully which keychain we want to put in the key of our house, but we don't put that care in the key we use for the garage. And it's not the key you own, it's the door that you open. So logo are just keychain. If they don't open a good story, there is no need of logo. They are just decoration symbols. I don't know if it makes sense. It makes
yes,
for
it
me.
makes sense, and it's incredible, but I agree with you. Armando, please.
No, I have a question for all of you about the emoticon. No? All these little
Eggplants
symbols
and stuff,
that
right?
there are thousands of these. Today in Japan they have a, come si chiama?
Emoji.
Emoji. And it's flattening our emotion when you communicate, with some friend, your boyfriend, girlfriend, and it's flattening our emotion. I think it's dangerous for the future. I don't know what you think about it. You are young people. And I think that Shakespeare would be very angry about it.
Synthesizing the emotion.
So I don't know. I would like to ask you, what do you think about the future?
Well, that is the final question, actually. But before the final question, I'm sorry, Armando, I would like to ask Bill to show his business card.
By the way, I love your business card. A lot of effort on that business.
I was toying with Bob as he was saying nobody should have graphic designer on their business card. And actually, I don't have graphic designer on my business card, but I was scratching out vigorously whatever was on my business card.
Must be very expensive also.
Well, I've ruined that one.
In terms of time also. It takes a lot of time. Well, excuse me, Armando, because we have the final question for everybody, of course. But it's incredible. I agree a lot with Bob. No, it's not incredible at all. Because there are a couple of facts. Of course, we are we call them logo because it's a commercial name.
Yeah, of course.
They are symbols. Letters are symbols. Dogs, cat, sun, etc., are symbol, and a very nice, point of your presentation is we can still invent symbols. And that is fantastic, because we used to say, well, all the symbols have been invented, so we can just remind, redesign them, etc., etc. And what I agree most is that design is a tool. I mean, it's not a discipline. Yeah. We have not to think all about the word to design a logo or a symbol, but we have to be, theoretical from a point of view, but on the other hand, extremely practical, because actually you have to offer to someone the key to understand what is behind the logo, behind the company that takes the logo, etc., etc. Yeah. Well, the final question was, does it make it sense? Does it make it sense what I say?
It makes sense, always. Everything you say makes sense.
Did it make sense what you just said?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to ask our public if they have questions for you all.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, Bob. If you want, we can lend you his sunglasses. And they lend you his sunglasses. So,
no question from the audience? For Bill, for Armando?
I tell you what I do usually, because I did a lot of lecture around the world, and usually the students are very shy, because they think, here we are in front of a master, but they don't want to speak. So what I do, I show my work, and after I ask them, tell me 3 work that you prefer, that you saw, And they start to speak, discuss between themselves, and I think it's a good idea. Ask them what they like,
Which is the trend right now for your logo design? Bill showed a trend. Did you agree with
which one?
Go ahead.
The things that you prefer.
Well, for me, what was really interesting.
I started.
When you spoke yesterday about merging these concepts, like you got the word cow or the word teardrop or raindrop. It's also interesting to think about how we can start merging these trends. Like if you were to take the variant fonts and then mix it with the square grids, you can get a really interesting effect from that without straying too far from what's already being done. So I don't know if in the past maybe you've seen that, the merging of trends.
Yeah. What you're referring to is part of the presentation yesterday was actually talking about, when we went to evolution, it got deep, but basically in evolution there are 3 different methods of evolving. One is linear, the other extreme is fusion, and then there is adaptive, which is in the middle. And linear just says that things are going to modestly shift. So that it gets cold, we start growing more hair on our body. Okay, linear modification. Adaption, the world starts to flood, we decide we better start swimming, we start to get webbed feet. Okay, so that's adaptive. And fusion is, imagine 2 different species intermating and creating a 3rd species. And that could be flowers, it could be animals, it could be, anything. And if you take those and you travel them over to identity design or logo design, then think about, does a logo shift ever incrementally as it evolves? And we want to evolve things. Sometimes things evolve backwards, but they don't always. Or do we do adaptive so that it is a little bit more dramatic, what is going on? And I think I used the example of the IBM logo having 13 lines, which Bob told me today was because of the 13 stripes on the American flag. I never knew that.
It's Armando fault.
I told him.
You told me. I appreciate it.
Because Paul Rand told me.
You heard it from his ears, from Paul Rand's ears.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to go to Connecticut in his office, and he told me, nobody knows, but the stripes are the stripe of the United States flag.
He was bullshitting you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, no.
But just to ask you, Paul Rand was drunk or?
No.
Was he Paul Rand or not?
He was very, very sober.
And so that idea of the linear might just be stripes getting fatter. The idea of adaptive might be the striped logo turning into the Adidas logo, where or turning into the Minolta logo, where suddenly you've got these variable line widths, and then suddenly that turns into Robert Miles Runyon's Stars in Motions, where the lines start taking jagged motions. Okay, that's adaptive. And then finally is kind of like marrying two things, marrying a gradient logo with a linear logo and coming up with lines that are gradient. You know, so if you understand that these are basically the three methods of evolution, going back to Darwinism or whatever, I mean, you can start to apply that and say, okay, how would this move forward if it were to fuse with something else? Can I fuse these two ideas together? Which is what you were basically talking about, is fusion and pulling two different thoughts together to create some new thought. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get so deep.
I have a thing to say, not as a young people, as you see, but as a copywriter. That has nothing to do with graphic design.
It does a lot to do.
But the thing about merging that he said before, even is in the words you used to describe the things you gave the raindrop, the peacock. Everything is merging. Starting even from the words. And another thing, I thank you for this meeting tonight, because it was very interesting, very a great food for mind. What you said about the emoji, I started to think about that the less thing we have to move, the more thing we can say. We have only 4 colors to describe an entire word. We have 12 notes. We have 23 letters. And we have 1,000 of emoji. But it's like going on a discount, going on a mall, on a supermarket. You have to buy what they give you. You have to buy the starry eyes. You have to buy the fountain cry. But if you only have 4 colors, you can build whatever you want. This is a thought I would like to share with you.
My point of view, if I can, Armando, it's emoji was invented for a reason, a specific reason. Words are useful but serious. They were invented, for writing serious stuff. Not everybody was able to read. So still today, when we get an email, everyone seems more angry and upset. Then we call it, and it's super easy. So somehow there is the lack of emotion, and we know it. So someone said, okay, let's put a smiling face when I'm joking, let's put a sad face when I'm serious, and blah, blah, blah. And this gets out of control. Because a new alphabet starts emerging, a new kind of metaphor. I'm pretty sure the 99% of people out here, if I send a message with an eggplant and a couple of drops, why are you laughing? I'm just washing vegetables for my salad. And it happened, because my mom sent one time an eggplant and a couple of drops. And I was scared. For those who doesn't know, just check what they mean. But we have too many emoji, because they are trying to convey, first of all, emotion. Okay, smile, thumbs up, it's okay. But Apple a couple of years ago made the guns emoji, that, by the way, that must be forbidden. But they transformed from a real gun to a water gun, kind of toy gun. And this is start to become, sort of game. We have emoji, at the beginning they were yellow. The smiley face is yellow. Now we have every skin tone. So this is what they complicated. It's like when we go to the supermarket, and sometimes, especially in the US, you know what I'm talking about, and you are standing in front of the cereal shelf. It's like in Italy, you stand in front of the pasta shelf. And you say, okay, what I have to buy? You don't know. So you start to think in emotion, which was the pasta brand my grandma bought when I was young. Yeah. So how to drive, maybe emoji born to insert emotion inside words. And there are too many emotion. And when you give a huge choice of emotion, people don't know how to deal with emotion. Doesn't matter if it's in the soul or visually in a text message. So it's a problem we have to solve. But thanks to God, we're inventing new languages. Because I don't want to live in a world where I can't send an eggplant and a couple of drops, or a peach and an eggplant. You know what I mean? So it's something. Yeah. By the way, they are just substitution for sex objects and stuff. Don't worry about it. It's
Metaphor or
human have my
symbols,
card
if you
back.
like.
I need to write
That's
that.
why it's so popular.
Don't worry, I never send you this emotion.
If I can,
He sends them to me all night long. He doesn't reply. I don't know why.
if I can add something, because from my point of view, I think as we create letters, and basically, there are 26 letters, and how many fonts. I got always asked, how many fonts do we need? Massimo Vignelli famously said, you just need 6. And actually, there are more than 150,000 typefaces you can find on the internet, and we do a lot of them. So, and Eric Spiekerman famously said, okay, how many records do we need? How many books do we need? How many clothes do we need? So, what we create are cultural objects, are artifacts of our mind, and they can have a lot of meaning, like Bob Dylan record, or they can be useless records that nobody will remember. I remember for the 70s you had books with clip arts to cut out from old prints, and you had thousands of these books. So I'm not afraid of emoji. I mean, you have thousands of emoji, people will forget them. But some of them, they may become new symbols, new cultural symbols. They may open new way of speaking. They may create new circuits. They may develop new languages. I'm a big lover of comics, and for many years, comics were, like sub-literature. And now, graphic novels, and we have authors that can speak important themes.
Movies coming from comics.
Movies come from comics. So I believe we must understand that there's a big responsibility in playing with these symbols we have. A letter is such a powerful symbol. As a graphic designer, a symbol, as little bird, it's a symbol of Christianity. It's a symbol, it's an ancient symbol. So this is what probably makes the difference as a good designer. I love the passion which Bill looks at every symbol, every detail, and see the whole world that's behind this symbol. And I believe this is the point. You go deep inside the symbol, you go to the essence, you go to what the thought that is behind that, and you can find a universe.
Yeah, I think going deep and recognizing not only the shapes, but also the mechanism that generated the shapes. So that, for example, I think that emoji are a very good example in terms of circularity of the pop culture, because actually they were born like an element of a Japanese subculture. Because they, in effect, the Japanese teenager needed to express something among words. But it's not a case that was born in Japan, because actually Japan or Chinese calligraphy are able to express emotions, just drawing signs. So it's something that is typical of their culture, that is not typical of our culture. So that was a way, and then they become, of course, something that can be commercial, and probably there is someone who is redesigning an emoticon and an emoji and transforming it in a very interesting symbol for the future of humanity. We may be the one that Bob mentioned, maybe. So it's a sort of, I think, the circularity of our popular culture.
I think that, when you start looking at emojis, there's nothing new. And I'm serious. I mean, if you take a look at all the symbols that have been created, whether they are for transportation groups or for any kind of communication group, I mean, we already knew that little thing like that, little smile, and you stick it on a little yellow dot and it's still a smile. It's just a way of delivering it to people. I mean, everything that's in the emojis, and by the way, if you're not aware, Microsoft just released an entirely new set of emojis which have an entirely different three-dimensional kind of quality to them that expands the library. There's approximately 3,700 official emojis that are recognized that are out there. And honestly, there is nothing new in that set. Think about it. There's already been an icon developed at some point or another. What it's doing is it's bringing a common language together that allows you to pop that in the middle of a message. And I think it's really kind of brilliant, because when you start to think about, and I press this a lot, symbols are incredibly mercurial. They are continually evolving. And some symbols take centuries or millenniums to evolve. Other ones evolve, in a matter of time. We talked last night about the fact that, you were saying you love comics. The little speech bubble became so imperative in logo design about 12 years ago, and everybody was sticking the speech bubble and everything. Well, the speech bubble first appeared in comics in a little yellow kid in 1908. And that was the first time somebody drew a speech bubble, and said, oh, I get it, this is information coming from an individual. And you take that speech bubble and you stick 3 dots in the middle of it. 10 years ago, what did 3 dots mean? Etc. Now there are psychologists that deal with people that have a condition where somebody starts to send them a text, and you get those 3 little dots and they're sitting there waiting for it, and it goes away. Well, what were they going to say?
Me.
What did they mean? Hey, what were you trying to, and we have a culture which our youngest generations are familiar with symbols that I'm not familiar with. Maybe I am because this is my life, but different generations are familiar with different symbols. When you start to think about the delivery device that your children play with, that pad that they're playing games on, there's all kinds of little symbols on there that are directing them how to play that game. And I'm willing to bet you don't know those symbols. And then that generation is going to grow up with those symbols into them. When they are sitting in this chair, they're going to be drawing a logo, picking up that symbol that was on that plaything that they played with as a child, because their generation understands that. So think about the fact that the symbols aren't a static thing. These are continually evolving, and right now they evolve more quickly than they have ever evolved.
And those symbols became a logo for a Italian fashion company. Yeah, that's only one.
There you go.
Altogether, it's not a matter of copyright, let's say.
Sure. I'll get off my soapbox, sir.
Any other question? Please.
I wanted to ask, as you have this logo launch web where they provide lots of logos, and we're talking about, for example, emojis. Okay, there can be a lot of them. At the end, there's this a series of them. I wanted to know your opinion about if in the logo world, more is more or less is more. Because at the end, maybe a symbol, maybe there are just a few of them creative, and the rest of them are just variations and merged with one or another. So I just wanted to know your opinion on that.
Yeah. You guys want to take a shot at that?
No. You're the main guest. It's up to you. Less is more, more is more.
Yeah. Remember that comment about pendulum swinging? And I hope this answers your question in here. I love variety in the first place. Let me say that. If you're asking my personal opinion, less is more. Not more is more. But there are times where more is more is good. Yeah. Right? Somebody brings a plate to your table and it's got a little tidbit for you to eat, and you kind of go, well, okay, less isn't so great here. I want more. Bring me more. And it's true with, I think, identity design many times. This high embellishment of something. Trying to put across the idea of a handmade aesthetic that comes across in something, or that something is sophisticated or luxurious or charming or romantic. You may involve more in it and less in something else. I'm wanting to make sure that I'm answering your question.
I think it depends a lot also on the client.
Yeah.
Because if you work for a bank, less is more. There is nothing else to do. But if you work for a fashion or for a singer, in this case, that's
imagine you're working for circus. If you're working for circus.
Exactly.
I don't want to go in a circus where less is more. I want to see elephants. I want to see, no more animal, but I want to see clowns. I want to see all this kind of colorful stuff.
Actually, we made some postcards with Zeta fonts.
Oh, show us the postcard.
Do you have more?
I have it here, and one is for Christmas. We made for Christmas client.
Pretty close Christmas.
Yeah. So one says is this? It's a lettering made by our house letter, and say, "Dear Santa, less is more is a lie," because
And this is the best answer you can get to your question, I think.
So you can have this, and this is our take on it. But okay.
What a great cap.
So, I mean, there is no answer. I think sometimes you need to add more. I mean, there is one moment, and then Armando, please confirm what I said. There is one moment to clean and one moment to get dirty. Imagine we all love Helvetica, right? The first one will say, I don't like Helvetica. We try to kill that person, probably. So I want to be that person. Helvetica is not always good. We criticize, and then we make our book. But when you have to clean a city, imagine the relationship between New York City and Helvetica as a font was due, because it was a mess. Any kind of fonts, direction, different subway lines merging in together, advertising everywhere. So you need to take the broom and clean a little bit and give a, more calmness moment. The example I made before, like circus, you don't want to be calm. The poster of the circus must avoid any kind of void. It must put color everywhere because kids have to like it.
I remember, excuse me,
vai,
in the office of studio of Paul Rand, which is, a modernist designer, but there was a big poster of Tomaszewski, the Cirque, very famous. And that's exactly what you're saying. The Cirque, colorful, and people, and animal. And this was one of his preferred designs.
And if I can add one last thing is also, Andy Warhol famously said, in the future everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. I believe it was, nowadays
too much right.
Too much right. So this means that, like for example, once you had to create a logo for a brand, and maybe there would have been 100, 1,000, 10,000 logos. But today, everybody of you has a friend who asks for a logo, asks for an identity. Yeah. That requires a very big number of different languages because we have to create an incredible number of identities. Everyone wants to be different from the other. And Bill is right. You make a logo and you go Logo Lounge and you discover, oh no, somebody has already thought this. Okay? And then a client comes to us and said, okay, we love Helvetica, but we want our Helvetica because all the other are using Helvetica. So this, I believe, is incredibly challenging, but also inspiring to be a designer today because we are always asked to create new languages, new identities, new standards, and this is a challenge. I mean, you can create, you use, maybe something will not stand the test of time, but maybe creating a lot of
always
stuff.
Pioneers.
In the more, you can probably create something interesting. While we can't be all modernist all the time because
just as Bill said, get to catch that monsters on the map. Someone said there is a kraken over there. Don't go there. Check with your eyes. Maybe you fall in love with the kraken. Who knows? So always go to the monster. It doesn't matter if it's a poster, typography, logo design, UI, UX design. Sometimes you have to follow the trajectory because otherwise people get scared because everything follows an evolution. But that evolution brings you to find the monster on the map and demonstrate there are no monsters over there, except you, probably.
Look for difference. Find your difference, let's say. That's our claim. Any other question? Please, ladies first. I think.
I wanted to continue with the topic that we were speaking about, but in a bit of an opposite direction. You're saying like more is good, but why do you think a lot of like brands, clone brands, Microsoft are doing the opposite thing? They simplify the logos a lot and like going from a unique style, like with serif font, interesting identity, to making everything like plain,
flat.
And I think it's like even nowadays more and more brands go in this direction.
Sure. This is what Bill called blending, and I believe this is something that is there. And sometimes as a designer, you see something that is there, you study it, and then you ask questions. So I have my question. I would love to ask Bill because I don't know if there's a right question, but it's something you have to consider. Brands now, they sometimes want to be blend. And this is the base. And I don't know, Bill, why?
I don't know that the brand necessarily wants to be bland, but I want you to think for a minute about many of the products associated with those brands that we're saying are going into blanding, if you will. Calvin Klein. A lot of fashion brands went that direction. Burberry, in a very short period of time. What stands out? What do you want to remember about that brand? Well, maybe it's not the logo. Yeah. Maybe it's the fashion. Maybe it's the product. Maybe it's the, and sometimes, and that was what I was, I explained to clients sometimes that imagine this is the logo and this is the product. There's got to be a hierarchy. They can't both shout at you, can they? So somebody's got to step back for the purpose that you're using it. And maybe you're introducing it to them and you want that brand to be really loud because you're trying to get them to take a look over here. Remember, nobody's going to buy something unless that product is in the consideration group. And if we only consider 3 things, you lost out if you're number 4. So as you start to talk about that, and as we were showing pattern earlier, ESL's, Electronic Sports League, the pattern is the driver on that Dayglow green and the yellow and the dizzy camouflage and the likes that works into it. That is what somebody's going to walk away remembering. It's an okay. There's good workmanship with the logo, but that's not what they're going to remember. Tom Geismer made a wonderful comment that I've always loved, which was, nothing dulls quicker than the cutting edge. And when you think about design and getting way out there on the edge, and I know I talked to you about running to the edge, but when you think about designing something that, okay, this is really out there, it's probably going to burn up quicker too. It's going to dull down and get tiresome. And a lot of those companies have gone to blanding. I don't know that anybody's going to get tired of what they did very soon. And it allows, a respite, and it allows the, the product to shine. But I guarantee you this, it will evolve. And it may not even be a logo. Maybe the type goes away and you look at their ad and you can tell by smell, or you can tell by synthesis, or you can, there will be an evolution to this, because all a brand really is, all that logo that we're talking about, that symbol, that emoji, that icon really is doing is it is delivering that message of what you know or what you need to know about that particular brand. It's just a carrier for you.
Ife, do you have another question?
So I have a question regarding branding as well. Last week when I visited my friend's family, the younger sister is only like 3 years younger than me, but she's using language that's very different and things I've never heard. So as you get older, I feel like if you get projects where you need to reach younger audiences, it can become a bigger challenge because language is evolving at a rate with mediated culture, TikTok, things like that. It's evolving so quickly. But now it's becoming even harder to relate to people that might be 5 years younger than you or 6, and all these new topics. So how do you relate to younger audiences as a brand designer? Or how do you communicate to them if the language is changing drastically?
We have to spend some time to the kindergarten, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, you use the word languages, and now Massimo over there are going to kill me because he's a copywriter, Which languages? Words, images, colors, shapes, or materials. When we refer to languages, we think they are word or just visual. Tons of languages. 3 years old, imagine these. There is this amazing video I show it also you during the branding class of a 3 years old girl, and the father is some sick graphic designer probably, a mad guy showing popular American logos. And when he arrived to the Starbucks logo, everyone is in love with the Starbucks logo that it will reduce their meme showing the last mermaid, next step just a green dot.
It'll work.
Yeah, it could work because we aim to have a green dot on the cup. But this little girl said not Starbucks logo as I said, or Cosimo, or Bill, or Armando said. She said it's the coffee logo. And this is dangerous. This is something, I mean, you must be scared because for me, Starbucks, I know they charge for coffee. I know I can go there typing a book that nobody gonna read, probably. But for that girl, it will be, I mean, people, it's over there doing this kind of stuff. Then little girl say, is the coffee logo. And this makes me really scared because it's not the coffee logo. It's a brand who serve you coffee, who brew coffee, who produce cups and whatever. So we have, when you have to communicate with kids, this is my point of view, maybe I'm wrong as always, you can't forget parents, especially if they are very young, because they have, of course, new technology model, influencer they watch. But the most important is the first approach. As I said before, when you find yourself stuck in front of the cereal shelf at the supermarket and you don't know which flavor you like the most, which character you like the most, maybe you will think to, you know, the beginning of your life, in which is the brand of cereal your mom grew up you with. There is this sentence, you know, if you take a stick of wood, it's us. And you can play with kids to learn the importance of family. And because brand create, you know, family, it's easy to break a stick. Then you break, and you break again, and you break again, since you have a couple of sticks that are unbreakable. This is what brand does to us. Because today, I know all of you want to change the Coca-Cola logo. How could it could be, I'm the designer who made the new Coca-Cola logo. They're going to kill you. The
new Pepsi logo.
The new Pepsi logo, or the new Nike logo, you know? You can't. Because the Nike logo is not owned by Nike. I mean, from the law, yes, but it's owned by the people. Because there is a picture of you eating with your grandparents having a Coca-Cola bottle on the table. And you will change, by changing the logo, the history of millions of people out there. So you can change the product, you can change the secret formula, you can add sugar, you can make Coca-Cola zero, but you can touch Coca-Cola logo. And this is the power of logo, because all the logo Bill showed to you, today it's just stupid piece of nothing. But one day could be the coffee logo, that the red bottle my grandma put on table, you know? So it's very difficult to know how to communicate with kids, especially nowadays. But we always find the solution in the past, because the first connection they have, it's this kind of comfort zone called family. It doesn't matter, family could be any kind of family. We know today very well. There's no more the traditional family or the not traditional family. Wherever you call family, it's where kids start to learn there is a language, any kind of languages.
I'm going to quickly challenge the premise on the Starbucks logo, just for a minute, which is that if that child says that green dot means coffee, they may have lost that the name is Starbucks. But if you stick a red can of coffee in front of them, they'll go, that's not coffee. Yeah. And they can tell you that if they want coffee, they need to go to the corner of 21st and Central, because that's where that green logo exists. So, you know, there's two sides to this. You know, there is a term called brandicide, which is basically references any product that escalator, tissue, Kleenex, thermos, that their name becomes synonymous with that particular type of product, where they kill themselves because their name becomes ubiquitous, can be used by anybody. And I think that I could see that being associated with the green dot. But at the same time, the idea that somebody would turn down any of their coffee that didn't have a green dot on it, that's kind of an interesting brand idea.
It's answer?
Yes.
Please.
Devo andare in bagno.
Vai fuori, sinistra.
You got it.
So we talked over the last 10 to 20 years about how the approach to identity design has changed dramatically from physical, a technical, and a strategic perspective. So I wonder, since you've been doing this 20 years, what this might have taught you about how we approach teaching.
Start that question again, I'm sorry.
So we talk a lot about how the approach to identity design has changed from physical, technical, and strategic perspectives. So I wonder what that has taught you about how we might approach teaching it differently, since it's changing so dramatically. You talk about a virtual reality logo, what the back of the logo might look like. How do we approach teaching now when things have changed so much over the past 20 years?
Yeah. You know, I've given this some thought obviously. And I think every one of us in here probably is a product of those individuals that we mentored under that taught us, you know, that they kind of laid down, here's my best ideas, you go forward. And depending on how strict they were or how loose they were, it probably is the same construct that we live with. And I kind of, you know, in a way, I kind of hate logos. I mean, I've got Logo Lounge, I love Logo Lounge, I love logos, I love to create logos. I mean, that was my foundation, that was my, you know, kid's milk. But when I think about it, my wife approached me when I was much younger and said, Bill, what is the next thing with logos? And it was mostly because she wanted me to go out and earn more money. But it was secondly because, you know, she wanted me to think beyond, because someday things go away. And as you start to think about what that logo represents, and I already kind of covered this earlier, it's, you know, it is representative of something. And many things represent some things. You know, if I gave the example when we were talking here a couple of months back about, you know, politics aside, love it or hate it, in America, Pentagram came up with a fabulous logo for Hillary Clinton. It was very flexible. It was that H that had that, you know, arrow that kind of drove through it, and it showed her forward progress, and it showed blue because she was a Democrat, and it, you know, and you could change it out to put in a picture of the city that you were in or the cause that you were with, and it was a fabulous logo set. Do you know what beat the crap out of it? A red baseball cap. And it didn't just kind of beat it up, it beat the crap out of it. And it was because the red baseball cap is not a logo, but it signified something, and it was what that signified. And it just goes to prove that it doesn't have to be that mark. You know, the sweater you're wearing could represent that brand and be that iconic thing. That smell of that fragrance that you smell could be the most iconic thing that represents it. That sound of the Intel inside could represent it, you know, much better. There's much higher recognition of that sound, by the way, than there is of the logo. So you look at these things, and I would start to teach the students, listen, what you're doing, I know we're designers, and you're accustomed to pulling out your, you know, your paint set, but what we really are doing is we're teaching you how to convey information to people that is a set that represents something. And to me, that is what logos currently do. And, you know, a lot of other things do it too. And, you know, can we do it better? Yeah. Can we do it different? And I would love to continue to, you know, if I could put every one of Paul Rand's and Saul Bass's and Armando's logos into my kit of logos that I designed, I would be the proudest individual in the world. But I'm not sure that set does the best job of representing all those entities in all the best ways. They're beautiful logos. I love the way they're designed. And I'd love to see that you guys continue to design that way. But I guarantee it's going to evolve.
And again, the problem is how to generate symbols. Not logo, not pictures, not apps, and so on.
And a symbol doesn't have to be a visual.
Yeah, exactly. It can be sound or whatever.
Symbology, in general.
Yeah.
Symbology.
Yeah, it was also asking, you know, about how you can. He was speaking about kids. He was speaking about how to teach. So it's also about our relation to the future. And the big problem right now is the future is running very fast against us. And for our generation, we were the first to how to learn about the digital. For example, your own is living the digital, and probably you will be the first that you will meet the singularity, artificial intelligence. And if you know about artificial intelligence, you can understand that the sort of work Bill is doing with Logo Lounge, you can already have, you know, neural networks, study this and elaborate, you know. So being just able to use a computer is not enough. What it's important, and I believe it came a lot, is the capacity to think And branding is basically neuroscience, is understanding how people think about what is to be human. And this is the thing we must understand not to lose. And will make you a better designer, and will make you understand how to speak with the next generation. Because human language is what we must, is not the shape of the emoticon or the angle of the logo.
Agreed.
If there are no more questions, we have the last fatidical question. Not the last one, actually, because I have something to ask you afterwards. That is, for everyone, in just one sentence, which is the future of the graphic design, the future of logo design and graphic design in general? Would you like to start, Bill?
Sure. I think it's incredibly bright because, man, these things are what drive us. This is where we suck candy down. This is what engages us. Out of all of our senses, sight is the number one that people say they would most hate to lose. And it's probably where we absorb the most information. And, you know, in whatever context it is, you know, in whatever kind of device gets invented that we can't even fathom yet, I guarantee you that whether it's inside somebody's head or whether it's through our eyes, we're going to be visualizing things, and somebody has to create those visuals that connote that information to people. And man, does graphic design get you there? It's just that don't be limited by the tools that are there right now. Think out beyond, you know, what's there.
Armando?
No, I agree about the tools that they should be always and always more sophisticated. But what I believe in is there is a famous artist, Ai Weiwei, is a Chinese guy, that said that art today doesn't have a meaning if it doesn't take care of humanity. So I think I want to dedicate myself to eco-humanity.
Thank you. Bob?
I like it. It's the most impossible question ever. I think the future of...
You decided to.
It was your question.
I mean,
He said, why don't we close on this one? We can know.
But you trust me. I think the future always scares us, but future of graphic design, it's always change point of view. Since we are able, you know, they say that a surgeon could be substituted by artificial intelligence. What we can substitute is the nurse, because they care of humans. So since we are able to change the point of view, doesn't matter with sound, taste, and whatever, this is the future of graphic design. Making stuff people can interact with and they can learn too from. Cosimo.
Yeah, I mean, John Lennon says, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. So you think about the future, but the future happens. And it's about, I believe, what they've been said, for me, it's all true. It's about becoming human and being human and finding a meaning in what you do and being as honest as possible with your work.
And making fonts.
And making a lot of fonts for you to buy. Yes.
What is yours?
My vision of future of graphic design, I have known actually. I think that in effect things happen, really, things happen. So we are always trying to get a connection with reality, but reality is faster than ours. So we have just to keep in touch. I mean, keep in touch with what happened outside, keep in touch with what happened in pop culture, etc., because it's quite difficult to foresee. Or every time you well, it's necessary to have guidelines. I mean, to understand that probably there are some trends that you can, exploit somehow. But actually, flexibility is absolutely necessary in this very moment because otherwise, well, you know, the cost of fuel is changing in this very moment.
Sure.
For a very, very, unpredictable fact. So it's quite difficult. Every time you standardize something, you kill it somehow. So if you fix your idea dies.
I think it's well said.
Wow, not bad this one. Huh?
Bravo, Carlo. Mi sei piaciuto.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's a pleasure. I have the last question for Bill because, Bill had a parallel career at the beginning. He was a musician, and a very good one. So,
a magician, not a musician. I can't play a damn.
A magician, sorry. Yeah, not a musician. A magician. He was a magician, a very good one. But he never showed his trick in public after stopping his career. By chance, I have brand new.
Can you make someone disappear also?
And they are warm.
And they are warm.
They are warm.
Okay, spontaneous.
Absolutely spontaneous.
Let's try something. Would you mind coming up and helping me out for just a second? I'm putting the young lady in the black and the white
Because
dress.
it's quite,
Just because it's so incredibly
she's recognizable from a graphic point of view.
with the black and the white hair, and let's come over here if we can. Tell me your name.
Marina.
Marina, I'm Bill. It's a pleasure to see you. Did you enjoy me tonight? Yeah. Okay, I'm looking for somebody who didn't. Go back. No, I'm kidding. You can stay here. Okay, nothing like being handed a naked deck of cards. It's a deck of cards. You play cards?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, okay. Do you really?
No, yeah, I have with my friends.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
So let me do this. What do you play?
I play Spanish games. I'm Spanish actually, but
The Spanish have their own games?
I don't know. I mean,
Are the Americans allowed to play? Can we come? Okay. No, I didn't know if it was just a Spanish thing or if it was just.
It is not a casino. It's
Okay.
a school.
And she lost all her money in Las Vegas, so don't continue, please.
This is good. No. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do is, and by the way, I love this entire monochromatic outfit that you've got going on. It works, but you got a little bit of purple going on in the socks.
Yeah.
So it's and yellow. Yeah, I know. You can't control the color, can you?
No, but I love colors. It doesn't look like, but I love colors.
Orange is my color, and yesterday they gave me an orange band. Yeah, yours too?
Yeah.
Okay, we're done. Was that good? Did you like it? Did you see what happened? No, okay. So here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the cards, and what I would like for you to do is I'm going to have you tap a card, okay? So as I go through here, what I'm going to have you do is just tap any one of the cards. Tap any one of the cards, but don't make me force it. Okay, are you positive that's where you want to stop?
Yeah.
You want to keep going, or should we stop there?
Stop.
Okay, that's fine. Close it up. Pull your card off the bottom there. That's fine. Pull your card off the bottom. Give me the rest of the stack. Okay, you got it? Show it to the room. I promise you I won't look. What is it? No, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Okay, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, take the card, and I want you to bury it inside of the deck, somewhere inside the deck. Have you got it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, now, Marina, do you believe in magic? Well, I'm going to get somebody else unless you're buying into this, because I've only got one shot at it. No. Okay. What I'm going to do, and it's very important. Do you know the difference between cards? Because obviously you play cards. Do you remember the one that you picked?
Yeah.
I should have told you to remember that, shouldn't I?
Yeah,
But you do. Yeah, was it a good card?
Yeah, for me it was.
Was this the card?
No.
No. Okay, I didn't think it was. Okay. Okay, here we go. 1, 2. What I'm going to do is on the count of 3, I am going to cause your card to fly out of the deck. Are you ready?
Yeah.
1. Now, it's very important, because I did this 3 days ago and it didn't work, that when I got to 3, the person didn't yell out the name of the card. It will not work unless you yell out the name of your card. I'm going to even give you permission to pull down your mask just long enough to yell out the name of the card so that everybody hears. I've been vaccinated. I think I'm in pretty good shape. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Yeah, don't pull down your mask so they can hear. Oh. You look very different when you have a face. This is interesting. Okay, here we go. On the count of 3. 1.
But you have to say the name.
Yeah, no, you have to yell out the name of the card.
Yeah, but I don't know in English the name of the symbol.
Oh. Would you like to go ask somebody?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, you go ask and come back. Dun, 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 dun. No. Okay, you get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the 3. When you say 3, I say the name.
You picked a 3.
No, when you say 1, 2, 3, I say the name of the card.
That's a good idea. Let's do that. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. On the count of 3. 1. What's going to happen on the count of 3?
The card is going to come out.
Your card's going to come out of the deck. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yell it.
E dov'è?
Is this it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the really important part of this, and probably what I need to express to you. I want you to hold these cards for just a minute, because what we're going to do is we're going to take these cards, with that in there again, and I'm going to try one more thing, except this time it's going to be different.
Okay.
Your card's going to happen a little bit different. You ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. What's your card?
5 of spades.
The 5 of spades?
Yeah, spades.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Come here.
What? Oh my God.
Is that your card?
Yeah, it is.
Give her a big hand. She did a great job.
Okay, okay. Well, I think we have finished this. Yeah.
But we have to leave over there.
How are we going to get that down?
Who's going to take it out?
I don't know. It's not our problem. I mean, now we leave.
Yeah, thank you very much to Bill.
It's my pleasure. I have so enjoyed being here. Thank you folks very much.
It was really very interesting.
And especially for this panel.
Thank you to you all. And thank you to our public. We always say that students are shy, but tonight the questions were really very, very smart.
They were.
Thank you.
And I want to say something, Carlo, sorry. This is the first time after a long time we have an in-presence event, I know with less people, so welcome back to the school, and it was a good way to open the academic year for most of you. We have teachers, external guests, alumni, and students. So good luck for your academic year, and please be the future designer we desire, the one who's going to make a better world, okay? Thank you very much.
Go in peace now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.